good evening, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Thursday, August the 29th, 2024. And on the show tonight, some bad news for our Coutts boys, but they haven't been sentenced yet. We'll give you all the details on that in just a couple of moments. Also, Justin Trudeau, some bad news for him from his by-election campaign in Montreal, where they're expected to win, the Liberals are, but who knows after what happened in that by-election in Toronto just a couple of months ago. Heavy favorites, Liberal stronghold, and they lost. They lost to the Conservatives. This time around, they might lose that Montreal seat, which used to be held by former Justice Minister David Lametti. They've held this seat for 20 years, 25 years, and they could be usurped by the Bloc or by the NDP. So this thing that happened today is not going to do them any favors. They could lose another seat. Justin Trudeau might be on the hot seat when Parliament resumes in just a few weeks' time in Ottawa. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, you guys, is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.ca, the immune gummies. Got to build up that immune system for everything that's coming at us this fall. Who knows what it's going to be? Monkeypox? Is it going to be a new strain of COVID? Is it going to be bird flu? Who knows? But we got to be ready for it. You got to build up that immune system as strong as possible. Simplify your daily immune support with convenient and delicious Nano Silver immune gummies. Each serving contains powerful triple action Nano Silver, elderberry, vitamin C, zinc, and vitamin D3. This will help to supercharge your immune system. Safe and proven Nano Silver technology works alongside your body's immune system to help you stay healthy and strong for everything, and I mean everything, that life throws at you. You can get this online at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Again, that is Canada, all one word, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. You can find retail locations all across the country. There's over 30 now, and they're scattered all across the country in almost every province. If you hit the retail locations tab in the upper right corner of the website, you can see it for yourself. It's right there on the screen. And if you would like to become a retailer of these fine products, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. All right, let's say some hellos to our viewers tonight. By the way, you guys, I want you to know that this will be my last show of the week, and then next week, once we get past the Labor Day holiday, we're going to resume regular sessions. So we're going to be going Monday to Friday once again through the fall and all through the winter at 8 o'clock Central. Monday to Friday, as opposed to what we've been doing the last few months, which is kind of a patchwork, but it has been Tuesday to Sunday. No, Sunday to Thursday. It's so hard to keep track. It's been Sunday to Thursday, but we're going back to Monday to Friday starting, well, the week after next, I guess, because I'm taking the next 4 days off. Somebody asked me last weekend, Shadow, have you had any significant time off in the last few years? And I actually had to stop and think about that. Have I taken any significant time off? Meaning, 2 weeks. You take 2 weeks off from work, you go vacation, do whatever, maybe fix some things around the house, whatever it is that relaxes you. And so I thought about it and I went, no. I really haven't. I've kind of taken a couple of days here and a couple of days there. I don't recall ever taking any longer than a week. So I'm going to take 4 days off. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, unless Granny Mackay wants to come on and do a special show regarding the Coutts boys tomorrow. She hasn't answered me on that one yet. But if she does, I will be back for a special show tomorrow. I don't know what time that's going to be. It's going to be at their convenience. So we'll work around their schedule. But if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be off until Tuesday. Relaxing, doing nothing, getting set for the fall session. We've got a lot of work ahead of us because there's this little election coming up in the United States, which is pretty much affecting everything and everyone all around the world. Hello, Leonard, watching from Altona. Hello, Linda, watching in Trenton, Ontario. Cheryl is watching from somewhere in Alberta tonight on Facebook. Hello, Michael, watching in Brampton. Mireille's watching in Lacombe, Alberta. Leonard, what's the crime capital of Canada? I heard somebody talk about Kamloops the other night. Is Kamloops the crime capital of Canada? I thought that was Winnipeg or Thunder Bay or Regina. Those are usually the big three. Derek, you saying Kamloops is the crime capital? Congratulations. We're number one. I shouldn't make fun. Hello, Linda, watching in Durham, the Ajax region in Ontario. Barbara's watching tonight in Glenora. Hello, Lise, watching in Strathmore, Alberta. Jonathan is watching tonight from somewhere in Ohio, the home state of J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate for the Republican Party. Mike is watching on Vancouver Island. Hello, Eddie, watching in Stonewall. And Barb is watching in southern Manitoba on Facebook. If you guys are watching on Facebook, please get it out there with a like and a share. Same thing goes with X. It's a reshare and a heart. Let's go say hello to the people watching on Rumble right now. Esky Dogs, Jasmine Cat, T. Meyer, World Peace, Vilma's here, Susie Q57, Winston Smith 2024, Starliner 1961, Patricia 0711, Jimmy James, Mommy's Little Monster 76 is here tonight. Oh, I'm going to butcher this. Is watching in Belsiker. Yodanitmer. Cosford's watching in Wellesley, Ontario. Daisy May 39 is watching from the RM of St. Francois Xavier in Manitoba. If you're watching on Rumble tonight, please get it out there with a share. You can do that by hitting the share button beneath the screen. That highlights the URL above the screen. From there, you can copy and paste to your favorite location. And do not forget, please, to give us a thumbs up on Rumble. Get us back on the front page, back where we belong. All right, we're going to start the show tonight with the Coutts news, you guys. I'm going to bring this up on screen here. I didn't ask any of Granny's crew to be on the show tonight, nor did I ask Jason Levine to be on. These are probably the best people to have on. The reason for that is because there was very high emotion going on in the courtroom, not just today, but all week. And I'm going to tell you what Sheila Gunn Reid of Rebel News has been tweeting. She's been live tweeting, or had been live tweeting from the courtroom pretty much all day today. So this picks up right after the court comes back in session around lunchtime. So Sheila says here, the court is back in session. The Crown complains about the avalanche of reference letters on behalf of the defendants. Apparently the letters came in last night and the early hours of this morning to both the judge and the Crown. The judge does not like the way in which he received them, whatever. Then the next tweet up is an unsigned, undated character reference letter from someone named Danny Blake in support of Anthony Olenek. Refers to help cleaning up after a fire that happened last year. Olenek was in jail last year. We don't know what that means. Another reference letter in support of Olenek states support of the actions at the Coutts blockade earlier this year. The blockade was in 2022. Crown says this is bizarre. Carbert filed no reference letters in support. Judge says that he has been a witness to the defendants, now convicted, of having people who love them throughout this trial. He says he sees no obvious warts in the past of Olenek or Carbert. They were hardworking, productive people before their arrests. We got to expand this one here. You can see for yourself, truckertrials.com. Oh, I see. That's how they get you with the truckertrials.com. So they want to guide you to their website. Guide us to the website. Rebel News, you guys are sneaky marketers. What else we got here? Carbert and Olenek are in the prisoner's box, sitting one chair apart, not wearing jail clothes, and neither is looking at the Crown prosecutor as he speaks. It should be noted, for what it's worth, that Justice David Lebrenz was the Crown prosecutor in the 2005 killing of 4 RCMP officers in Maythorpe. Dennis Cheeseman and Sean Hennessy each pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the 2005 deaths to the officers on a rural property near Maythorpe. James Roscoe killed himself after gunning down the officers, but court heard that Cheeseman and Hennessy gave him a rifle and a ride to his farm before the ambush. I'm not sure exactly what the relevance of that is. Let's continue on. Sheila says for what it's worth, so that's noted. Crown starts by saying this case is not about protest and that disagreements with the government are not illegal. Justice Lebrenz corrects the Crown and says that disagreements with the government are essential in a democracy. Crown is asking for 9 years in prison for Olenek and Carbert, forfeiture and destruction orders on everything seized, and DNA submission. He also asks for a 10-year firearms ban for Olenek and a lifetime ban for Carbert. Co-accused who took guilty pleas got time served. What's the extra part of this tweet? The duo have been in jail now for 2.5 years, she goes on to say there. Next up, Crown prosecutor, by the way, is Stephen Johnson. One more left-wing corporate media. They had apparently 3 left-wing corporate media in attendance there today. Next tweet up. The judge just suggested the Crown wants him to sentence the defendants for a firefight that never happened. So that's good news when a judge interjects with that. If I recall correctly, Sheila says Carbert came out and surrendered despite his bravado to undercover officers. He came out with his hands up to a tactical armored vehicle. And the RCMP ERT team. There was no suicidal hail of bullets, no war, no blaze of glory. He puts in parentheses, Carbert was sick with COVID when he was arrested. Yeah, there was something about that. I believe Chris, when I had him on the show via phone a few months ago, mentioned that. Judge just said Carbert didn't want to shoot anybody. Crown says, yes, I know he didn't want to commit suicide. What? Gallery scoffs. Crown clarifies that he meant that opening fire on the ERT team would mean suicide by cop. Good save, Sheila says. Carbert claimed he had a cache of weapons to undercover officers, but no cache was found. He did have an illegal assault-style weapon, some overcapacity magazines, and some other varmint plinkers. He had thousands of rounds of ammunition. But who doesn't love to stock up, Sheila says, when there's a good ammo sale going on? Crown says the men were prepared to die. And it sounds like they're retrying the case this week. After all of the time these guys have spent in court and in lockup, and they had to go through all of this again, after a verdict has been rendered, let's not forget. It seems completely extraneous, but anyway, let's carry on. The Crown says the men were prepared to die and they believed they were at war, but that's obviously not true. They had an opportunity to go to war with the cops and didn't. Carbert surrendered peacefully to the ERT team. Crown wants to, as the judge said, sentence them for a firefight that never happened. Good pickup by the judge there. Next tweet up. Crown said Carbert self-radicalized on the internet through, quote, videos that people promulgate on the internet, unquote. And those internet posters carry some responsibility for what happened. Why is this Crown making the case for Trudeau's Online Harms Act? Sheila quips. The Crown notes the gallery is almost always full here, indicating a high public interest necessitating a high level of deterrent and strong sentence. But he fails to note the gallery is full of supporters for the 2 men. Then court is adjourned for 15 minutes. Olenek and Carbert wave and smile to supporters as they clear the prisoner's box. Next up, Marilyn Burns, defense lawyer for Tony Olenek, makes her sentencing arguments and says her client was very concerned about conflicts with UN troops, the World Economic Forum, CCP, that's China, Antifa, and the safety of children. The judge stops her and reads from transcripts noting Olenek was far more candid when speaking with UC's undercover cops than he was once in custody. Tells Burns Olenek was ready to engage in conflict with police. Now, they were found not guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, so I don't see how that comes into play here whatsoever. He said the RCMP were arms of the devil. That's what Tony said. And he wanted to run and gun and slit the throats of police to the undercovers. Mind you, the undercovers don't have any recording of any of this being said, nor do they even have notes, apparently. Next up, lawyer for Olenek, Marilyn Burns, says rural people would not be as bothered by bringing guns to a protest. They bring them to a grocery store and have them under the back seat of their cars. The judge says you might be overstating things. And then Sheila goes on to say, I'm as rural as it gets, and we don't bring guns to the grocery store. Burns is now reading from supportive reference letters for Olenek. One was from a businessman who offered employment and a place to live. Another letter from an Anglican deacon talks about Olenek's tolerance for his beliefs before jail and Olenek's embrace of Christianity. Tony does not and will not represent a danger to society. Next tweet up. Burns says the potential for a DNA collection order is inappropriate and intrusive and quickly moves on. The judge stops her and asks if there is more to her argument or if she would like to cite case law to make her point. She does not, and then moves on. Burns says Olenek should get extra credit for triple bunking, gang-affiliated roommates, and other terrible conditions experienced during the 13 days he spent in remand in Calgary. The judge wants evidence, like he doesn't know. Burns said, we don't have that evidence. Burns is done, wants no prohibition on firearms possession for her client. Judge tells her 10 years is the minimum sentence for that. wants a sentence amounting to time served. That's what the defense lawyer wanted. Adjourned for an hour. Carbert's lawyer, Catherine Bayak, is up after the break. So now we move on to Catherine Bayak making her request. Catherine Bayak for Chris Carbert is now up arguing against his continued incarceration. She notes his broad community support, strong family bonds, and says his business assets have largely been liquidated during his 900 plus days in jail. Chris Carbert had previously sole custody of his son since he was 9 months old and was unable to see his son during much of his incarceration. Bayak says the damage done to his relationship with his child is a motivating factor for Carbert to stay out of trouble. Bayak is arguing the social isolation and emotional and psychological impacts of responding to the mandates helped get Carbert where he is today. He was dissatisfied with the government response and he joined in the convoy. Bayak says there's nothing in evidence to support the Crown's assertion that he would have engaged in violence to defend their protest. Bayak is arguing the significant differences between Carbert and Olenek, drawing the judge's attention to their phone evidence. Olenek re-vaccine mandates texts, "It's party time, finally. I can't wait much longer. I'm getting antsy." Bayak says Carbert was not participating in these braggadocious exchanges. Carbert's texts indicate he did not want war or violence. Moving up, there is about 40 people, back down to 2 left-wing corporate media journalists in the courtroom, she points out. Bayak continues, there's no evidence that Mr. Carbert showed anyone his weapons. He did not brandish them. He did not tell people about them. The judge says that would be foolhardy given all the police around. Bayak said, or a demonstration of his unwillingness to use them. He wasn't desirous of being in a situation to use them at all. That's actually been echoed over and over and over again during the course of this trial. Text messages indicate Carbert blamed Lysak for getting arrested. He didn't call for backup or rally the troops. Instead, he tried to find a lawyer and turned himself in. Oh, the gun charge, Sheila says, against Chris Lysak was not that he was unlawfully in possession for a dangerous purpose, but that he didn't have an ATT, authorization to transport, which is a paper crime. He was unlawfully in possession in an unauthorized place. Very, very different. Given credit for time served, at least 1.5 days per day, these guys have been in jail now for just shy of 4 years, 3 years, 299 days to be exact. We're not talking about a lifetime drug dealer here. What's to be served by further incarceration? I would suggest nothing. That's what Bayak said. She wants 30 days in jail for mischief, firearms prohibition, and 2.5 to 3.5 years on firearms charges for Carbert. Concurrent sentences, and that would be time served, as we were discussing when the verdict came down a few weeks ago. Court's in recess for 15 minutes. Sheila goes on to say, in looking at similar cases, I noticed the Crown wants more time for Carbert and Olenek than one of the guys convicted of manslaughter in the killings of 4 Mounties in Mayothorpe. Dennis Cheeseman was sentenced to 7.5 years. Sean Hennessy was sentenced to 10. The Crown wants 9 years for these guys, 9 years. And then finally, sentencing will be issued on the 9th of September. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but I guess the judge has much more to think about now, even with the verdicts that came in a few weeks ago from a jury. So sentence is going to be issued on the 9th of September, so they have to stay in lockup until then. It's all over, but the ruling. Chris Carbert and Anthony Olenek remain in custody, in lockup, in Lethbridge, Alberta. I want to hear your thoughts on this, you guys, so put them down in the comments if you please. I think these guys have spent enough time in jail. I thought that a year ago. I thought that a year and a half ago. And when the sentencing came down, not the sentencing, the verdicts came down a few weeks ago, we thought they were going to be walking out that night with bail. But that wasn't the case. They were supposed to return the following Monday, as I recall, and that got postponed until this week when all of a sudden court got expanded to 4 days or 3 days, and now they have to wait until September the 9th. That's absolutely deplorable, as Linda just mentioned in the comments. Deanna says the Supreme Court has denied hearing any COVID vaccination travel mandates cases. Yeah, that's absolutely true as well. Someone higher up got to the judge, Vicky says. Speculation. Kim makes a very good point. They're still making an example of them. Michael says ridiculous. Meanwhile, violent, repeat, and previously deported felons are being released. Kendall says sickening. These guys should never have been put in jail. Well, that's not completely true. I mean, what happened down there was, in fact, breaking the law, but it should not be like this. What the Crown is doing is making an example so that nobody ever gets the guts to do this again. That's what they're trying to do here. And maybe they're setting us up for something yet to come. Like maybe something like this. The Hill, which is an American publication, put this out today. I saw this headline and I couldn't even believe it. It's an opinion piece. It's not a story or a recommendation from a medical professional. It's an opinion piece by somebody called Aaron Solomon. Summer COVID surge shows we may have to return to 2020 pandemic measures. As summer 2024 draws to a close, the U.S. finds itself once again grappling with a surge in COVID-19 infections. This wave has taken many people by surprise, particularly as the country has largely consigned the pandemic to the past. Well, public life has pretty much returned to pre-pandemic norms, something almost none of us would have believed in the summer of 2020. The virus, yeah, I would have. The summer of 2020, we were all free, remember? It was in the fall of 2020 when things got really bad. But he says the virus itself is not. Mutations of the virus continue to occur. And new variants are emerging, posing ongoing blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, I can't read this anymore because I'm going to actually be sick on television here. And I don't want you to see anything like that. But I just can't believe that there are writers out there who are actually willing to write pieces like that. And I also can't believe there are publications out there who are willing to publish pieces like that. It's absolutely outrageous. Now, monkeypox, on the other hand, let's not forget monkeypox. From Natural News, now this is good news, actually. South African group challenges the WHO's Mpox emergency declaration, warns public about vaccine dangers. Oh, tell me more. Now, remember, this is in naturalnews.com, not exactly what people would call a mainstream publication. And people are still discerning, using their own level of discernment, to tell you that MSNBC is much more informative and accurate than a publication like Natural News. They're more willing to believe MSNBC, CNN, CTV, CBC because of their branding, because of their marketing. Has nothing to do with their actual journalism. Let's keep that in mind. They're just used to it. Like, let's face facts. We all grew up watching Knowlton Nash. Well, we weren't watching news when we were kids, but our dads and moms were. They were watching Knowlton Nash on TV, or the CTV guy, I forget his name. Lloyd Robertson, they were watching him and they trusted him. Gray hair, glasses, serious demeanor, suit, tie. The news was a good evening, right? Like Walter Cronkite style. So you would believe somebody like that. Believability, it's key. And believe it or not, these networks, at least to some extent, still carry that kind of credibility. It's not the people on the air. I'll bet you that you have a rough time naming more than one, maybe two personalities on your local television news outlet. It's not like the old days, is it? But yet it's that logo that's up in the corner. CBC, CTV, this is CNN. Remember, James Earl Jones was the voice of CNN at one point. And yes, at one point they were a very trusted news organization, but now they're paid shills. They are paid shills. Anyway, let's see what this South African group of doctors has to say here. The South Africa Vaccine Injury Medico Legal Study Group, or SAVIMS, recently released a press statement expressing its disagreement with the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization's declaration about monkeypox and this outbreak being a public health emergency of international concern. Following the announcement of the Africa CDC and WHO, SAVIMS expressed serious concerns regarding this proposed emergency rollout of vaccines for Mpox in Africa. On August 13th, Africa CDC Director General Heen Kasia revealed plans to distribute over 10 million doses of Mpox vaccines across Africa, starting with 3 million doses this year. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus made a similar announcement the following day, emphasizing the urgency of this vaccination effort. However, SAVIMS has questioned the safety and efficacy of this plan, as any normal common sense person should, pointing out there is no vaccine specifically proven to be effective against Mpox. You know what? I'm not going to use Mpox. I'm going to stick with monkeypox. That's also a marketing ploy. Don't forget that stuff. They're very tricky like that. The currently recommended vaccines, Genos and ACAM 2000. Got to get my shot of ACAM 2000. Be right back. They were originally developed for smallpox, and their use for monkeypox remains experimental. SAVIMS notes that these vaccines have been linked to serious side effects and contain live virus strains which could potentially trigger a resurgence of smallpox, a deadly disease, an actual deadly one. It almost eradicated millions globally. SAVIMS has also raised concerns about the potential use of mRNA vaccines for monkeypox, stating there is no scientific evidence to support their effectiveness in preventing or mitigating infectious diseases. According to this group, SAVIMS, the adverse reactions reported with the experimental mRNA vaccine significantly outweigh any potential benefits. Remember, this is a group of scientists and doctors speaking out. Now, we're going to go through this, and this is posted by somebody on X called Lucky. You can see that in the upper right corner, or sorry, upper left corner of your screen, right? There's Lucky there. And Lucky posted this video, says, huge lines to get tested for monkeypox in Omaha, Nebraska. Let's watch this 9 seconds here.
She's 5'9".
Oh my God, look at that lineup. Everybody is scared of monkeypox in Omaha. Well, community notes on X have added some notes here. Readers adding context saying, misleading, this is a Tim Walz rally. He's the Democratic vice presidential candidate underneath Kamala Harris on the ticket. You knew that, though. And they go on to say, this has nothing to do with Mpox. So this, my friends, is a little bit of a lesson in not sharing something immediately. You got to read everything around it, the context, the comments, and then decide for yourself if you're going to share it. Because the last thing we want to do after accusing the other side of misleading information, incorrect reporting, leaving important information out, is start sharing misinformation ourselves. Did you find this helpful? Yes, I did. But there are some interesting comments down the line here. This should not be community noted, but the post is being targeted by the Krasenstein Brothers Brigade. They won't be able to community note this one, no. This woman was interviewed earlier today outside the Tim Walz rally in Omaha, Nebraska. Okay, let's see what this has to say here.
It is an actual replication of my husband's penis with his ashes in it that I have slowly been spreading around the gathering, and he's here.
Oh, no, please. I'm not going to be able to unsee that. So Lucky goes on to say, well, they were doing testing at the rally, but that's just what Lucky says. So then Istaphobe says this is BS, this is a troll or a joke or whatever. So you see, there's liars on all sides of things. We don't know what the truth is. We don't know if that was only for a Tim Walz rally. We don't know if they were doing monkeypox testing for people who were waiting in line to see Tim Walz speak at this rally. We don't know. I just thought it was funny and a good reminder that we shouldn't share things unless we know the full context of what it is we're sharing. I'm going to speculate, but not right now. I'm going to speculate in just a couple of minutes. Here's a story from back in June from the left-wing corporate CTV. Calgary water main repairs could take 3 to 5 more weeks after scans revealed deficiencies in the pipe. Calgary's still having water difficulties, of course. This story goes back to June. I think it's June the 15th. Yes, it is, June the 15th. So they say water restrictions could be in place for 3 to 5 more weeks in Calgary after a scan of a broken water main revealed 5 more locations in that pipe that are in need of repair. First of all, how incompetent do your city planners and plumbers need to be to let a pipe get that dilapidated before it finally just breaks and cuts off water to the entire city? So I don't think this is the case. This is my speculation. I believe that this was deliberate. There is absolutely no way on earth that a problem like this could have been left the way it was until it finally just exploded, leaving an entire city of 1.6 million people without water or very little water. And they also mention here in this left-wing corporate media article that on June the 15th, they say 3 to 5 more weeks to fix this. 3 to 5 more weeks would have put it roughly in the middle of July, maybe the third week of July. Here we are in the final week of August. Water use in Calgary, they've got rationing going on in Calgary right now. Water use in Calgary slips again, but still far from the target. Now, this story comes from today, from the same left-wing corporate media organization. Residents reduced their water use again in Calgary yesterday, the city's website shows, but it's still not at the target officials say will prevent critical issues with Calgary's water supply. You people are selfish. You're using too much water, and it's causing problems. It's causing delays. You are the problem. I'm surprised they haven't set up a snitch line. According to the City of Calgary's website, 494 million liters of water was consumed yesterday, still 44 million liters above what officials want usage to be at. It's not even 1% less than the previous day's total, said Michael Thompson, the City of Calgary's General Manager of Infrastructure Services, the guy responsible for this in the first place. It's the third straight day of excessive water use since restrictions were brought in at 12:01 a.m. on Monday. Thompson said education teams have been out since the rules came back into force, and we're surprised to see individuals and businesses that were not adhering to them. That's because they believe that it's all a pile of crap. Because you have lost their trust. There is rampant institutional mistrust from all levels in this country, whether you're a municipal government, whether you're provincial, whether you're federal, it doesn't matter. We think you're lying instantly, which is kind of a sad state of affairs, isn't it? But who's to blame for that? It's not us. After everything that we've been through for the past 4 years, well, you've got restrictions. No, you don't. Now you do. No, you don't. You can sit down and take your mask off, but when you stand up and go to the can, you got to put your mask back on. How stupid is that? Oh, wait a minute. Tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, we're going back into full lockdown. Well, if there's that big an emergency, then why don't we do it right now? Well, we need time to prepare. Why? To put a mask on? All of this nonsense for the past 4 years, and now they expect people to adhere to water restrictions. Seriously. In the meantime, you're a month and a half late in getting this thing fixed. You are the 4th largest metropolitan region in the entire country, and you can't fix a pipe. That's a sad state of affairs, man. That is a sad state of affairs, and people need to be fired in Calgary. Now, there's something else I want to mention. I know we have Calgary viewers, and I love you guys in Calgary. You guys have got a 2050 plan of your own, and you may have seen because you watched the show, you may have seen what's been going on here in Winnipeg. People have been standing up and fighting back. Maybe it's not necessarily because of the plan. They don't believe that it's a United Nations 2030 agenda thing. Maybe they just don't like the way it's being rolled out under the cover of night in the dog days of summer when nobody's around and they're trying to fit in their public information sessions like that, right? They're trying to get these things in so nobody is going to see them because everybody's out of town at the cottage or something. And so people don't like that, not one bit, considering the fact that this is a very significant plan. It's going to affect the lives of almost 1 million people in the Winnipeg metropolitan region. So people are standing up, they are fighting back, they are educating themselves. And Calgary's got this plan. It's in place. The mayor there, Jody Gondek, was just elected vice president of some mayor's climate association. Where's the resistance in Calgary? I would have thought of all the cities in this country, Calgary would have been the first one to stand up and say, all right, that's enough. But so far, I haven't heard much, unless I've completely missed out. I don't know. Am I wrong? You guys from Calgary, from Southern Alberta, please let me know if there's any kind of resistance going on to this Calgary Plan 2050. But remember that every city and municipality across this country that's doing this, they've got a different name for their plan. They're not going to use 15-minute city because they know exactly what that's going to get them. They might use complete city. They might use healthy city. They might just use forward planning for 2050, something like that. Remember, I showed you a couple of weeks ago how to find out easily if your city or municipality is involved in this. And there are over 400 municipalities of the 3,600 in this country that are. Most of the populous ones are actually involved in this. It's simple. Do a Google search or a Brave search or whatever browser you use. Type in the name of your city and then Plan 2050. So if it's Sherbrooke Plan 2050. It should be the very first thing that comes up on the first page. You'll be able to read all about the plan. And when they start using things like diversity, words like diversity, equity, inclusion, sustainability, you know that that plan is modeled on Agenda 2030 that came from the United Nations. Now, I do have some good news about the United Nations coming up a little bit later on in the show tonight. It comes from a secret camera that, what's his name? The guy, the Mug Club guy. What's it? Crowder, Stephen Crowder, Louder with Crowder did some undercover reporting. And he actually got to speak, maybe not him personally, but one of his people spoke with a UN globalist who actually called himself a UN globalist. You guys know how I feel about the left-wing corporate taxpayer-funded CBC. But I will give them credit when credit is due. And this particular story seemed pretty good. Never mind the content. It just seemed like a fair, well-rounded, well-written story. Having said that, here we go. It's actually kind of funny, too. I went, what? Like they're mutinying on Trudeau? That's hilarious. Liberal staffers pull support for party in Montreal by-election, citing government stance on Gaza. Remember that they lost that by-election in that Toronto stronghold of the St. John's riding just a couple of months ago. And here it is. They might lose another Liberal stronghold because their own staffers are revolting against them. The Liberal Party of Canada facing revolt by ministerial staffers, mostly of Arab and Muslim origin, over the Trudeau government's handling of the war in Gaza and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict generally. Really? What country are we in again? 52 Arab and Muslim staffers working in the Liberal government signed a letter addressed to the leader of the Liberal Party that says they will not participate in its by-election campaign to hold on to the seat of LaSalle, Iman Verdun, left vacant by former Justice Minister David Lametti, referencing the increasing push for Liberal staff members to phone bank and door knock. The letter obtained by CBC News warns that while many of us started our political careers in elections as volunteers, we can no longer in good conscience campaign for a party that excludes us and our values. Staffers are not acting alone. They've also asked for and received the support of a group of influential Arab and Muslim donors to the Liberal Party known as the Network 100 GTA, London, Ottawa, Montreal. Back in November, the network announced it was pulling out of the Liberal Party's top donor ranks over Trudeau's disinclination at the time to call for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict. I cannot believe that these people are so influential in a Canadian political party. It just, I mean, come on. Canada, Native Canadians, people born here are still by far the vast majority of people who will be voting. So why are these political parties so scared of these minorities? Well, they're far more brave than we are, said Hussein Hamdani, who's a founding member of that fundraising group in an interview with the CBC. We held our money back. Sure, they're putting their own livelihood at risk, he said. I'm hoping the party recognizes this is not some people who may or may not be donating, he added. Maybe they can, maybe they think they can find other donors, but you can't just find 50 staff overnight. What the staff are really trying to do is help the Liberal Party wake up, and they're taking this extreme step to do so. They issued 5 demands, of course, the ceasefire and from the river to the sea and all of that stuff. That has no place in Canadian politics. And guess what? Guess what? The Liberal Party did this to themselves. And I love it when the left eats their own. I feel absolutely no sympathy at all for any of them. Even if there are Jewish members of the Liberal Party in that particular riding, I feel no sympathy whatsoever. That is not a Canadian concern. Palestine, Israel, you guys go and shoot it out in your part of the world there, but this is Canada. You leave it behind when you come here. We've got bigger fish to fry. Speaking of the CBC, I'm going to take back everything I said about that one article there when it comes to this article here. Poilievre's Conservative Party embracing language of mainstream conspiracy theories. First of all, is there such a thing as a mainstream conspiracy theory? Have you ever seen a usually conspiracy theories are consigned to the corner. And that's why it's a laughable thing for these people. Ah, you're a conspiracy theorist. So the CBC is acknowledging here that there are, in fact, mainstream conspiracy theories. That means they're widespread. That means that many, many millions of people have embraced these theories as actual fact. Because guess what? What is a conspiracy theory these days? It's a fact in 6 months or 3 months. I guess it's been speeding up these last few years. Tories leaders' summer stump speeches include ramped-up rhetoric about the World Economic Forum. Why is the CBC, and I know they're on the payroll, but I mean, do they not realize how stupid they look every time they denounce this as nothing but a conspiracy theory, especially when there is video out there? YouTube has left it up of Klaus Schwab talking about penetrating the cabinets and all of the other gruesome things that the World Economic Forum has discussed in their yearly meetings. Every year, something comes up. Biotechnological convergence, all that crap they're talking about. You will own nothing and be happy, the Great Reset. That all comes from the World Economic Forum. And guess what Trudeau said just a couple of days ago? Remember, he said, we've got land in Canada. That whole 60-second thing about building more housing. He put out that 60-second video and he said, we've got land in Canada. We've got land. We're going to use that land to build affordable housing. But unlike the conservative leader who wants to just sell it off and make a quick buck, we're going to hang on to that land and we're going to long-term lease it to developers. So what does that mean? You will own nothing and be happy. So the conservatives here, apparently, are big purveyors of misinformation, according to the CBC, and conspiracy theorists, just like millions and millions and millions of other Canadians. But you see, they're talking about a party here that has garnered, on average, for the past 18 months, 42% of the electorate in Canada, which is unheard of. It's been unheard of, federally speaking, in Canada for over the past, well, since the second election of Jean Chrétien. We have not seen one political party over 40% in a very, very, very long time, 30 years almost. And yet here's the Conservatives consistently over 40%, but they're conspiracy theorists, the CBC would have you believe. So this is nothing but a bunch of propaganda. Speaking of Pierre Poilievre, now we've all been concerned about the immigration issues, and we've all been concerned that Poilievre hasn't been talking about it. Well, today he talked about it, and here's what he had to say.
Do you want to see a reduction in the number of permanent residents that are admitted to Canada in the next 2 years? It's at 500,000.
We have to have fewer. We have to have a smaller population growth. There's no question about it. We cannot grow the population at 3 times the rate of the housing stock, as Trudeau has been doing. We need to have a growth rate that is below the growth in housing, healthcare, and employment. If you want if you want an idea of how I would run the immigration system overall, it's the way it was run for the 30 years prior to Trudeau being Prime Minister. We had a common sense consensus between Liberals and Conservatives for 3 decades that screened people to make sure they were safe, only brought in the numbers that we could absorb into our housing, healthcare, and job market, and blocked temporary foreign workers where they were taking jobs from Canadians. That was a common sense consensus that existed before Justin Trudeau, and the radical and out of control NDP Liberal government destroyed our system.
Yes, absolutely true. He's absolutely correct. So Maxime Bernier is on the record on X today, calling Pierre Poilievre a two-faced snake for not talking about this sooner. Okay, Max, whatever. I think the PPC is polling roughly at 4%, and they have no chance of winning. Now, people have asked me what my problem with the PPC is. I'm going to be completely honest with you here. I don't have a problem with the concept of the People's Party of Canada. I like their policies. As a matter of fact, when I read their policies on their website, that's the party that I align with the most. But when I look at the reality of the situation, I quickly understand that there is absolutely no way the PPC will ever come close to winning. And the only way they have a chance at winning is taking away some of the numbers from Pierre Poilievre, because after all, they are both the right-leaning parties in this country, which would leave us vulnerable yet again to another Justin Trudeau government. Now, what I've said to you guys in the past, I will stand by. That a conservative government gives us at least a 4-year window to get our crap together so that we can come up with something better. Now, after everything I've been through and trying to be involved locally with these information sessions for the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Plan 2050, I don't know if we're ever really, all of us freedom-minded people, common sense-minded people, I don't really know if we're all ever going to be able to get together and agree on anything without backbiting, backstabbing, name-calling. It's actually been incredibly awful, some of the things that people say out there. I don't trust you. I don't trust you as far as I can throw you. And then, of course, you immediately want to fire back and say something awful. But you don't. You just hold it in and go, oh, all right, everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's fine. It's when somebody starts assassinating your character publicly that you do have to step in and defend yourself. But anyway, my point with the PPC is that they don't have a chance of winning. But if there is some way that they become more popular, then they bleed support from the Conservative Party. So then the Conservative Party, let's just say the PPC goes up to 15% miraculously somehow from the 4% they're at right now. Well, they're only going to get those 11 points from the Conservative Party, which would take the Conservative Party down to about 31 or 32%. The Liberals would stay where they are with the NDP, probably around 24, 25%, but that still puts them within range to form another minority government. And if the Liberals and NDP gang up like we've been thinking they might for the past couple of months now and form one single party, well, then the left would be in control again, and we would be heading to the Great Reset and Agenda 2030 at breakneck speed, as opposed to wagon speed or tricycle speed, which is something we could handle, because then we can get our arms around some of these things and stop them before they start, and maybe get rid of some of the rot in our institutions, like this SOGI 1, 2, 3 stuff, the transing of our kids, all of these corrupt judges that have been appointed by Justin Trudeau. And by the way, even if Pierre Poilievre does get into government next year, let's say there's an election sooner, let's say he wins it, he still may not be able to do anything, because the Senate, 85 of them have been appointed by Justin Trudeau. They claim to be independent senators, but they're not. They're all career Liberals. Charles Adler was just appointed to the Senate just last week, remember? And wow, he's certainly taken a turn in these past 10 to 12 years, hasn't he? Ezra Levant on Rebel News says that he's been auditioning for this job for the past 10 years as a Liberal senator. And guess what? He got it. There he is. And any decision he makes is going to be in the best interests of the Liberal Party, not for Canada, but for the Liberal Party of Canada. So even if they're not in power, they still are. And let's not forget, the Supreme Court has all been appointed. Well, not all, but the majority have been appointed by Justin Trudeau as well. So we may have, in fact, a constitutional crisis brewing in Canada when the Conservatives win this next election. What we're going to have is an elected House of Representatives, that's the House of Commons, versus the appointed House, the House of Sober Second Thought, which is the Senate. And in order to get any kind of bill passed in this country, you got to go through 1, 2, maybe 3 readings in the House of Commons. Then it goes to the Senate where they can amend it or they can say no altogether and send it back. And we haven't had that happen in Canada since the King Byng affair sometime in 1911 or 1912. But it could happen. They may have to, in fact, reopen the Constitution and try and get the Senate operational, meaning a Triple E Senate elected. I don't know what they're going to do about the Supreme Court, except for maybe using the notwithstanding clause. But even that in itself only lasts for 5 years, and then you have to go back to the rulings of the court. Our whole system needs to be broken down and then rebuilt because it doesn't work properly right now. And of course, the rot within the bureaucracy is absolutely amazing. I have had a taste of this over the past couple of years, a small taste of it. And I can tell you that the rot is wide-reaching. Why do you think so many people have not wanted to speak out? People, rich people who could make a difference, could have made a difference right from the beginning of this whole nightmare. If all of these people would have stepped up and said, oh, no, we're not doing that. Because they're all beholden to the government in some way, whether it's contractually, whether it's monetarily. They've all got a stake in the game, and if they lose their contract with the government or they lose their approval for some project from the government, they lose tens of millions of dollars, and people lose jobs. So things could have been way worse had they stood up. But then again, if they did stand up, none of this would have happened in the first place. But they couldn't take that chance, maybe, right? It could have been the Jerry Maguire syndrome. Who's with me? Crickets, nobody. Even after they all say, yeah, we're with you, Jerry, we're with you. We're with you 100%, man. We got your back. So he finally gets the nerve to stand up in front of all those people, and they don't. That's the situation we find ourselves in. People do not want to make that sacrifice because they still have something to lose. And they, I guess, need to be in a position where they have nothing to lose. That's the only thing that may get them going. And I believe that when all of this smart city nonsense starts to roll out hard, and all of these smart city plans, by the way, across the country, Trudeau's got deadlines on them, and those deadlines, well, that deadline is January 1st. So we're going to start seeing this thing ramping up all across the country. We saw farmers driving tractors through the streets of downtown Kitchener yesterday. Remember I played that video for you guys last night? People are now more willing. They've seen it. They know what's going on here. They've had 4 years to wake up. Yes, I understand there are some people who are still, you're conspiracy theorists, go back to bed. I get it. I understand. I see people in masks every day all the time still. But more and more people are waking up. They're watching shows like this, and they're figuring it out, and then they're doing their own research, and they're not liking what they find. And then when they find their group of people, look out. Look out. Fear the man who wants to be left alone. That's the guy you fear. This from mcmyconsultant.ca. Now, this is more about Pierre Poilievre. Well, it was more about Pierre Poilievre. I had a story there. Maybe I still do. Nope, guess not. This was about immigration and Pierre Poilievre's feelings on immigration, and he's against the Century Initiative. And we're going to talk more about that in the extension on shadowdavis.com tonight. The Pope, a lot of people are saying, Catholics even, the Pope is the devil, actually. Pope Francis says deliberately opposing migration is a grave sin. Saw a lot of people on social media the past couple of days saying, yeah, I'm a Catholic, but I'm lapsed, and I'm lapsed because of this guy right here. He's the worst. So how would, if you were to think about the devil trying to take over the world, right? How would you do it? You would take over the earth's religions, the ones that believe in God and Jesus. And maybe that's what the devil, Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, whatever you want to call him, has done with the Catholic Church, which, by the way, is the world's, maybe aside from McDonald's now, the world's largest holder of real estate. Mm-hmm. Pope Francis condemned efforts to regulate immigration, stating that those who is it systemically or systematically? That's where I keep screwing up that word. Systemically work to repel migrants are committing a grave sin. Well, how is that a grave sin? There's nothing in the Bible about repelling migrants. Leaving aside his series of Kitchayatal addresses, Pope Francis yesterday, used his Wednesday audience to address the topic of immigration. I would like to pause with you to think about the people who, even at this moment, are crossing seas and deserts to reach a land where they can live in peace and safety. Is there anything in there about communism? Here's the Pope speaking in a different language, but we do have subtitles. They're very small at the bottom of the screen. I hope you can see them.
Bisogna dirlo con chiarezza. C'è chi opera sistematicamente e con ogni mezzo per respingere i migranti. Per respingere i migranti. E questo, quanto è fatto con coscienza e responsabilità, è un peccato grave. Il Signore è con i nostri migranti nel mare nostro. Il Signore è con loro, non con quelli che li respingono. In quei mari e in quei deserti mortali i migranti di oggi non dovrebbero esserci, e ce ne sono, purtroppo. Ma non è attraverso leggi più restrittivi, non è con la militarizzazione delle frontiere, non è con i respingimenti che otterremo questo risultato. Lo otterremo invece ampliando le vie di accesso sicure e le vie di accesso regolari per i migranti, facilitando.
So basically what he's saying there is it's a bad thing. It's a sin. It's a grave sin to repel migrants. All right, let's move on to the big tech guys. Elon Musk is being hassled by Brazil now, also by the EU. And of course, we know about Pavel Durov, who's been indicted on all charges and banned from leaving France after his 4-day arrest the other day. Here's a little piece on Durov now.
Telegram owner and CEO Pavel Durov has been handed preliminary charges for criminal activity on his messaging app by French authorities and barred from leaving France until further investigation. Released early Wednesday after 4 days of questioning, he was ordered to pay a €5 million bail and report to a police station twice a week. Allegations against the Russia-born Durov, who is also a French citizen, include Telegram's use for child abuse material, drug trafficking, and refusing to cooperate with investigators. Russia criticized the arrest as politically motivated, but French President Macron denied this. The outcry has raised eyebrows among Kremlin critics because in 2018, Russian authorities themselves tried to block the Telegram app but failed. Durov and his brother founded Telegram after facing pressure from Russia.
All right, what else? As far as Elon Musk is concerned, he's telling Brazil that they can go pound sand. Brazil's Supreme Court to Elon Musk, name a legal rep or X is banned. This week's escalation follows months of defiance of government inquiries into the platform's role in the January 2023 attack on Brazil's capital. You mean when they put a president in power who was not duly elected? Or that? What did Elon Musk have to do with it? Well, they were using his platform to gather, to organize. X is facing a deadline to put a face to their presence in Brazil before the nation's top court bans the platform from the second most populous country in the Americas. The Supreme Federal Court posted an order at 8:31 local time last night, and on X, ordering the service to name a legal representative in Brazil within 24 hours under penalty of suspension of activities in Brazil. I wonder how the Brazilian people would feel if their social media app went down like that. It's like a phone these days. The order signed by Alexandre de Moraes, one of the court's 11 judges, comes after X announced it would shut down operations in Brazil instead of complying with an order by de Moraes to suspend accounts allegedly posting disinformation to undermine Brazil's democracy. What is it with these authoritarians all over the world? They're all following the same script. Since April, the judges led an inquiry into the role of the former Twitter may have played in helping digital militias plot the January 2023 insurrection in Brasilia in support of former President Jair Bolsonaro. The rioters who stormed the capital's presidential, legislative, and judiciary buildings sought to overturn Bolsonaro's defeat in October of 2022 by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Many hoped the military would join their efforts and stage a coup. Remember that? As Brazil's armed forces did in 1964 before embarking on 21 years of military dictatorship rife with extrajudicial imprisonment, torture, and execution. Yee. What's worse? The January 2023 insurrection has been widely compared to the January 6th. I'm not even going to use the word insurrection because that was not an insurrection in the United States. At no time was the Republic ever at risk, ever. Except that in Brazil, courts and other government bodies have not bent over backwards to shield Bolsonaro from accountability. In June 2023, the Supreme Federal Court banned the former president from running for office until 2030. In April, President Lula, as he's commonly known, became one of the few heads of state to set up shop on the Twitter alternative Blue Sky, where he posts under the name Lula Official. That's the handle he uses on Blue Sky. This is not the first time Brazilian authorities have threatened to ban a social platform for non-compliance. In March of 2022, de Moraes ordered Telegram to shut down in the country for failing to meet legal obligations to combat disinformation, blah, blah, blah. Musk, however, has taken this treatment more personally, criticizing de Moraes in increasingly hostile terms that Bolsonaro supporters have cheered. Meanwhile, Musk has walked away from X's anti-disinformation efforts, invited such misinformation magnates as disgraced conspiracy liar Alex Jones. Disgraced conspiracy liar. Alex Jones back on X and has shared fake images of himself. Huh? I don't even dare click on that link. It's right there. But, ooh, that might lead to some, ooh. Musk took the news, as he does most criticism, by, quote, sharing supportive posts from his chorus of superfans with opinions like, this judge has repeatedly broken the laws he has sworn to uphold, and sharing an altered image of de Moraes wielding lightsabers as if Voldemort and a Sith Lord had a baby and he became a judge in Brazil. So Musk is making fun, just like he's been doing with the Europeans, which I think is hilarious. And maybe this is one of the reasons that Mark Zuckerberg has come forward and said, yeah, you know what? The government made me censor you. Sorry. Maybe he's trying to shield himself from some kind of extrajudicial action against him and Meta for his role in that. Even though he technically was the one doing the censoring, if he was coerced in that, and that can be proven in a court of law, then that's a violation of the First Amendment in the United States, which could land Joe Biden and anybody else responsible for this in jail. That's it for the social media part of the show tonight, guys. We still have much, much more to cover in the extension, including exactly what is the Century Initiative, where did it come from, and is it in play right now? I believe, yes, it is. That and more coming up in the extension in just a couple of minutes on shadowdavis.com for members. If you're not a member, go there and become one right now, and we'll see you there in a couple of minutes. If not, you have yourself a great 4 days. I'm not going to be back until Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. Oh, now listen, if you guys missed last night's show with Barry Neufeld, please go ahead and watch that show. Barry, at 76 years old, is still standing up for the safety of children, not just in British Columbia, Chilliwack, where he lives, Cultus Lake, I believe, but all across the country. He has to go back to a human rights tribunal in October, and the results of that hearing could affect other hearings like it all across the country. Meaning, if you say if you misgender somebody, you could be accused of hurtful conduct, hateful conduct, and be thrown in front of a human rights tribunal yourself. It's really bad. So Barry needs our support, but first we need to know who he is. So if you missed that show last night, go ahead and watch that, please. And if you missed the show with Lisa Robinson, the city councillor from Pickering, Ontario, on Tuesday night, go on back and watch that. She is a firecracker. Have yourselves a great 4 days. I'll catch you Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Central. Tuesday night, yeah, after Labor Day, for another Shadow at Night live stream for you all access members. I'll see you in 2 minutes on shadowdavis.com. Love you all, appreciate you all, and I will talk to you soon.